so much, Honorable Chief Minister, as well as Navika, for that.
And ladies and gentlemen, as India solidifies its place as a global tech powerhouse, the impact of communication and artificial intelligence in shaping this transformation has never been more vital. Our next speaker has been instrumental in driving this revolution, crafting policies that define India's future. From expanding connectivity to leveraging AI for innovation, he is leading the way forward, a smarter, a more connected Bharat.
In fact, it is our privilege to welcome the Honorable Minister of Communication and Development of the Northeastern region, Shri Jyotiraditya Scindia. Let's have a big round of applause for him. Well, we are also going to be requesting Mr. Vineet Jain to please come and felicitate the Honorable Minister with a small token of our appreciation. Thank you so much, Mr. Jain. May we now request our Managing Editor, Times Network, and the Chief Business Officer, Times Influence, Mihir Bhatt, for this insightful conversation. I'm going to be handing it over to you, Mihir, for India's tech communication and AI revolution.
Thank you, Meghna. Thank you, Mr. Scindia, for joining us. Morning to you. And thanks for coming to Times Now Summit. Our theme for this year's summit is Keeping Bharat Ahead. Technology is going to play a very vital role. India was a follower when 4G was rolling out all over the world. India hopes to lead the 6G revolution. What is your vision? How will that happen?
So first of all, Mihir, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be at the Times Now platform. Bharat today is firing on all cylinders. And what the Industrial Revolution did to the world 100 years ago, today the communication revolution is going to make an exponentially bigger change on that same paradigm. What used to be highways, physical highways 100 years ago, today are communication highways. And it is communication highways that are going to change every facet of human life over the next decade. And therefore, the Prime Minister has given primary importance to the area of telecom, to the area of IT, if India indeed is to become a global power. And which is why you have seen I would call it even a quote-unquote a disruptive shift in the way India has looked at telecom. India has always been a services giant. And to give you a flavor, Mihir, we had 900 million subscribers on mobiles in 2014. We today have over 1.2 billion. We had 250 million people connected onto the internet, which by itself is huge, the population of the United States of America. Today we have 970 million people connected to the internet. We had 60 million people connected to broadband, which is 2 GB or more. Today we have 940 million people connected on broadband. So the jump has been exponential. But we have been a services-led communication giant across the world. And the Prime Minister is very clear that we need to move to become a product nation, a telecom product nation. Now, how do you do that? You only are able to do that if you're going to be able to enter the big league of nations that produce telecom products. And today, let me tell you, we have only 4 countries in the world: China, Finland, Sweden, and South Korea. 4 countries with 5 companies that produce a telecom stack. And India is the 5th country in the world to produce its own indigenous telecom 4G stack. So we are there now. What is our aim? BSNL today is rolling out 100,000 towers of 4G. Completely Atmanirbhar Bharat, indigenous 4G stack. The core produced by CDOT, the government company, if you will believe. The RAN, which are your telecom towers, produced by Tejas, which is a Tata company. The SI, system integrator, being TCS, a completely indigenous solution. And I hope to complete that process by June. And the minute we complete that process, we'll start switching each one of those 100,000 4G towers to 5G. That being said, at the same time, we are proceeding on 6G. The Prime Minister in late 2022, early 23 unveiled the BG6A, the Bharat 6G Alliance, where we've got all equipment manufacturers, telcos, ISPs, IITs, educational institutions, academicians working together to ensure that in the IMT 3GPP 6G standards, India will contribute a minimum of 10% of the patents that will come out in 6G. Which is why I say to you, with our 100 5G test beds, our 6G test beds being in place, our Bharat 6G Alliance tying up with the 6G alliances of many nations, with the US, with Germany, with South Korea, with EU, with the UK. And that's why I'm very committed to our resolve that we followed the world on 4G, we marched with the world on 5G, we will lead the world in 6G.
Absolutely, that's very encouraging. Starlink is knocking on our doors. As we all know, they have already tied up with two largest telecom operators in India. So two questions in one. One is, how will government ensure that BSNL remains competitive against this onslaught of new technology that is coming in? And the second question is, of course, government has reportedly set tough conditions for Starlink's entry to India. So how do we align that with our goal of promoting fair competition and remaining ahead in technology?
So first of all, let me take a step back and talk about the satellite space. With every couple of years, earlier it used to be eons, and then it translated into decades, and now every couple of years, there is a paradigm shift in technology. Now, that's something that all stakeholders have to contend with. I remember I was taught, I had the good fortune of being taught by the founder of Intel, Andy Grove, at Stanford University when I was at business school. And in our last class, Mihir, it was a 9 a.m. class, he said, I don't want to teach you guys anything today. I wish you guys all the best. I've written something on that whiteboard. The minute I leave, have a look at it and let that stay with you for every day of your life. So we were all like, what has Professor Grove written on that board? And the minute he walked out, those whiteboards that slide one over the other, we drew that up, and there were 4 words written there. Only the paranoid survive. So to survive, you've got to be paranoid, and you've got to keep moving with the curve. And therefore, satellite technology today is here. And for me, as Telecom Minister, it's complementary. It's not competitive alone, it's complementary. Because satellite technology provides 2 very key resources. Those remote locations where I cannot set up a RAN or a tower, those remote locations where I cannot lay OFC, I take communication to areas and to people in that areas through satellite, number one. Second, God forbid, but if there is a natural disaster and your terrestrial network gets completely destroyed, the only way communication messages happen is through satellite. So for me, it's a complementary solution, not a competitive solution. And as Telecom Minister, it's my job to make sure that my primary stakeholder, which is my consumer, all of us seated in this room, gets as many choices as possible, and then let the consumer decide which service they want to go with. As far as BSNL is concerned, BSNL is already tied up on the satellite network. We are already doing a D2D service, a direct-to-device service for messages. So BSNL is very much ahead of the curve, and a company which I want to share with you, Mihir, that after 17 years, 18 years, the last time BSNL earned a quarterly profit was in 2007. After 18 years, in the October-December quarter, we have posted a 262 crore net profit within BSNL. So winds are afoot, winds are a change. We've increased our top line as opposed to what I've read in a lot of reports. Our cellular income has gone up by 15%, our FTTH income has gone up by 18%, our lease line revenue has gone up by 14%. At the same time, we've cut costs. Revenues top line has gone up by 9%, costs have been cut by 18%, and our EBITDA, 9-month Q3 24-25 versus 23-24, has grown from 450 crores to 1,500 crores. There's been a 3x increase in quarterly operating profit. And our net profit, we were a net loss Q3 last year of 1,262 crores, which we've converted to a 262 crore profit in this quarter. So along with all telcos, India is a competitive environment. India is a competitive space. And I believe that we have 4 telcos providing service, and that will continue to be the case. There are very few countries in the world where you have 4 telecom operators providing service in a country. I was just in Europe, in Barcelona, at the World Mobile Congress, and there is shrinkage happening all across the world as far as telcos are concerned. Telcos are not spending on capex. In India, we've had the fastest 5G rollout in the world. 22 months, 99% of districts, 773 out of 776 districts covered, 82% of population covered, 4.2 lakh crores worth of capital invested by telcos. It's historical what's happening in India. And India is leading that telecom revolution in the world and will continue to do that across every sphere.
Right. So how much time will it take before we see our own version of Starlink, our own company, launching a similar product like Starlink?
Well, I think that depends on the satellite constellations, because we've gone from GEO to LEO and MEO. We had GEO services in India, but that construed a high level of latency and low bandwidth. Now with LEO and MEO, you'll get low level of latency and very, very high bandwidth. We've already given out 2 licenses, one to Reliance and the other to Bharti Airtel, 4 satellites. We have a number of companies that are in the pipeline that have applied. And as I've mentioned on many a forum, we have a pro forma. They tick the boxes. They start operations in India. We welcome them with open arms. India is open for everyone to do business, provided you tick the boxes, you get spectrum, and you start business.
Right. I know you're getting late. Just quick 2 questions on Northeast. First of all, according to you, what are the biggest challenges that we still face as far as development of Northeast region is concerned?
Northeast has changed, ladies and gentlemen. What was considered to be the fringes of India, today is the mainstream of India. And let me tell you why I say that. India is growing at 6.7%, 7% GDP. And it's the power of compounding that is transforming India. If India continues to grow a decadal growth rate of 6.77%, which we've done in the last 10 years of Prime Minister Modi's government, and that's the way that we've been able to lift 25 crore people out of poverty. That's the way we're growing to a $4 trillion economy. That's the way we've gone from 11th largest economy in the world to the 5th largest economy in the world. And that's the way we're going to grow to a $5 trillion economy by 2027 and a $6 trillion economy by 2030. And that's the way we're going to become from the 5th largest economy in the world to the 3rd largest economy in the world by 2028, pushing Japan and Germany to 3rd and 4th and 5th place.
Right. So
Northeast is going to be a huge portion of that. Why? Because as the rest of India is growing at 6, 7, 7.5% growth rate, GDP growth rate, our 8 states in the Northeast are growing at 12.5%, 13% GDP growth rate. Growth is being powered by the Northeast. Why? Because we've looked at building out the infrastructure in the Northeast. In the last 10 years, there's been a sea change in terms of government capital expenditure in the Northeast. We're doing close to 1 lakh crore per year, 10% of gross budgetary support of 54 line ministries in the Northeast. We have transformed the Northeast in the last 10 years by putting in place close to 5.5 lakh crores of investment. 9 airports grown to 17 airports. 10,000 kilometers of national highways grown to 16,000 kilometers of national highways. 1 single waterway grown to 20 waterways. 45,000 kilometers of PMGSY. So today we see the Northeast as a huge catapult to our major entry into the rest of Southeast Asia. And I would want to look at the Northeast becoming a part of the huge old trade route from the global Southeast Asia all the way to the Middle East, all the way to Europe. And that's where we need to power the Northeast, which is happening today with the Prime Minister's prerogative of the first fab being set up in the Northeast, being set up in Assam, 27,000 crores. The first green hydrogen project being set up in the Northeast at a cost of 20,000 crores. So the Northeast, ladies and gentlemen, is powering India. Please do visit the Northeast. Sample the beautiful handloom, handicraft, tourism, flora, fauna, amazing opportunities in the Northeast. Be a part of that change. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. It was a pleasure having you. But before you leave, just one last question. Do you think government could have done more in controlling the violence that's happening in Manipur? There is president's rule, but somehow the ethnic clashes refuses to die down.
So, Mihir, please remember that this is an issue that has unfortunately been prevalent in Manipur, not today, not yesterday, not 3 years ago, but for the last 40, 50 years. The government is not only seized of the situation, but I do think with President's rule, the Home Minister on the 1st of March called a meeting for free movement of people. That has been today been put in place. You've had 5 judges of the Supreme Court visit Manipur. They've had a huge round of the state come back extremely satisfied. Our development projects in Manipur from the donor ministry perspective, from the railway ministry perspective, we are building out the latest connection for the railhead from Jirbaum to Imphal as we speak. Close to about 85,000 crores worth of projects today are being undertaken by the railway ministry in the Northeast. We are powering ahead in terms of our development program in the Northeast, and I am very confident that under the leadership of the Prime Minister and the Home Minister, peace will soon return to the Northeast and to Manipur in particular. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us here. Thank you.